So a few months ago, I released the Bear Performance Podcast. It's a collaboration effort between me and the BPN team. It's a fitness, health, business, leadership podcast, and I haven't pushed it on YouTube yet. But I decided this is going to be the episode that I wanted to first release on YouTube because the response this past week has been so amazing. And it's on the go one more mindset and mentality, right? And I use practical examples of how I started using this in real life and how it has changed my life every single day and how it can change your life if you implement the go one more mentality and mindset. So check out this episode. Let me know if you guys want to see more video podcasts on YouTube and what you thought of this episode alone. But I have it on iTunes, it is on Google Play, and it is on Spotify. So check it out. Let me know what you guys think. Going one more, it's a lifestyle change. It's something you implement on a daily basis that makes this massive shift in your life because it compounds. If I do something every day, one more, that's when it pays off. This is not a mantra. This is not just a phrase you find on Pinterest or Instagram that you recite when things get tough. This is literally a way of life. And I'm going to explain more in depth what that means. But just remember, it is something you implement on a daily basis every day of your life to take you from point A to point B. It's not this one thing you recite when things get tough or you need that little pick-me-up or it's just something you pull out of your back pocket every once in a while. It doesn't work that way. If you don't use it all the time, it doesn't compound, it doesn't work. So that's that's the way I wanted to preface this podcast going into it. And not to be taken lightly because of the importance and the impact, like I said, that the go one more mentality has left on my life. And it's only been brought to light as of recently. You know, this is something that I've been building into my life and my schedule and just the way I do things for a long time now. And I didn't really recognize or realize how important it was until recently. Actually, until I started writing the book. So I'm like 9 months in right now of writing my book, which is titled 25 Hours a Day. And as of right now, we're looking to publish around middle of November. So everything's on track. I literally just finished the last revisions and edits to the manuscript. And now it goes to the editor of the publisher. And we kind of start wrapping things up. I start working on the audiobook and it's released to the public. And I'm so excited because the lessons that I talk about, that I implement, and I had been implementing from when I just got started, when I was a broke-ass college student in central Pennsylvania who took on a $20,000 loan and took the biggest risk of his life, to now where 7 years later, we've made this business work. We've created this brand that is sustainable and thriving because of the work that we put in. And the go one more mentality it's kind of like the living, breathing, I don't even say mantra, but it's like the tagline. It's a way of life. That's the best way to say it. And I'm going to open this up with two stories. And I talk about both these stories in the book. But the first time I remember using go one more and that mentality was in Ranger School. And I know I talk about Ranger School a lot, but I learned some very valuable lessons there that changed my life that I still implement today because of the circumstances, the conditions, the environment, that these things that we practiced were so different and so unique and so extreme in some circumstances that they are so applicable to what I do today. All right, so like imagine this. I'm going to paint you this picture. So we the night before the story happens, we were doing our patrol in I believe it was the mountain phase. It was either the mountain or Florida phase of Ranger School. And during this phase, during every phase, there's no sleep, really. There's no food. You're sucking. You're just dragging ass and you're exhausted. But you get this little glimpse of light every night where you get maybe 30 minutes to maybe 2 hours of sleep. And those are the best 30 minutes to 2 hours of sleep you'll ever get in your life. Like, you look forward to that moment because your food is also based around that time as well. So typically you would eat your first MRE when you got to the patrol base late at night, and you eat your second MRE as soon as you woke up. And that could be within a 30-minute time frame or a 2-hour time frame. But you don't eat the rest of the day in between those times. You're just waiting till that, like I said, that 30-minute to 2-hour just block. That is like the safe zone where you get to sleep, rest, and eat. So this one night we roll into our patrol base and it's probably like 3 a.m. And like usual, and the RIs, the ranger instructors, give instruction to leadership and say, hey, do your patrol base, set up your sectors of fire, establish security, and then go into priorities of work. Priorities of work being food, cleaning your weapons, establishing security, and then maybe that night we had 50% could sleep at a time, and then 50% had to stay awake on security. So the ranger instructors deliver that information to the leadership, and they go and start working on evaluations for the day. Well, that leadership said, screw this, we're going to bed. Next thing we know, we're getting artillery simulators thrown into our patrol base, and that small little glimpse, that 30-minute to 2 hours sleep that we were going to get that night just went away. And we were throwing our rucks back on and walking literally until 5:30 the next morning, where we rolled into our next mission. So there was no sleep that night. So that was the night prior. The next morning, I got put in leadership, and I was a squad leader. And during your evaluations in leadership, you're expected to motivate and lead these men to follow your directions. And the directions that you are passing down is coming from the higher leadership, the platoon leadership. So this is one of those days where guys are just absolutely sucking. They're just hurting. And I'm distributing information to the squad, and the one guy in the squad was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And he was about to LOM. LOM is the ultimate disgrace to leaving Ranger School. It's called LOM, lack of motivation. If you just decide one day, hey, I don't want to be here anymore, you can get up and leave. You can leave Ranger School if you want. No one's holding you there. You just got to tell the Ranger instructors, hey, I LOM. I have a lack of motivation to stay here and complete this mission. And hey, they send you home. So this kid tells me, hey, I think I'm going to be an LOM. I'm going home. I'm done with this stuff. And what I said was, just go one more day, man. Just go one more day. And then guess what? The day after that, I said, just go one more day. And just go one more day. Take every day at a time. And, eventually he graduated with us because he kept going one more day. And instead of looking at it as, oh, shit, I got to pass this entire phase. I have to pass my leadership evaluations. I could be here for another couple months if I recycle. And when you look at something like that extensive and massive and complex, it's overwhelming. Well, when you break it down, just take one day at a time. Just go one more. It's not that overwhelming. You can break it down to these smaller, simpler problems to get over and solve. And that's the first time I remember really implementing and practicing and preaching the go one more mentality. An actual experience and an application that, well, shit, that stuff works. If you have that mindset of going one more, like an instance like that works. But that was just part of the school. And I never thought of it. Like, it didn't spark in my mind like, oh, go one more. It's genius. No, we were all saying it. We were all telling our buddies, hey, just go one more day. Just go one more day. And just hearing someone say that, it felt good. Yeah, we're all sucking. We're all in this together. Let's just take one day at a time. So that's when it really started to cross my mind, like that mentality. And then the second time where it really started to stick. At that time I wasn't able to bounce that idea the first time off of people outside of the military. I didn't have a community on social media to bring that up. In the military, everyone's sucking at certain points, and you kind of you relate those moments of suck with each other, and it feels better. When you're all in it together, it feels better. It's a camaraderie aspect. Well, the second time I used it, I wasn't in the military anymore. This was just last year. And this time I was training for my second marathon. And it was one of those days where I had to do 18 miles that day. And on the course of my run, I realized it wasn't one of those days that I wanted to run 18 miles. It just kind of hurt. It was uncomfortable. And my legs they weren't feeling it. You have those days when you're running, at least I do, where some days I hit the pavement and I'm like, shit, I can go forever. Like last night's run was like that. I didn't want to stop. I literally felt like I could run forever. My legs felt good. My breathing felt good. My body felt good. And there's some days where I hop on the pavement and within the first 20 steps, I say, this is not going to be my day. And this was one of those days where I knew it was not going to be my day. But I knew I had to complete 18 miles for marathon prep. That was a required run that day. So, I'm running, I'm getting some mileage in. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. I don't want to finish this run. And it was almost like, I think of things externally where when I'm so absorbed in that moment, I'm really good at pulling myself away from that moment and that perception and being closed-minded and look at the overarching picture, like the massive picture of what's going on right now. And when you're able to do that, you can break things down a lot better. You can think clear. You can think more clear and more effective. And in that moment where I was so closed-minded, I was so focused just on that run and how much it sucked, I was able to pull myself away from that picture and say, well, Nick, you're being a little bitch right now. Like you're being a little bitch. There are people right now that are training harder than you. There are people right now that have it worse than you. You have the luxury of being able to train and run 18 miles right now. So instead of running 18 miles, I was like, I'm going to do one more. I'm going to run 19 miles today. And that's what I did. I ran one more mile to almost, I almost want to say, to penalize myself. I realized that I was being a little bitch. And those 18 miles were going to suck that day. And because I was being a little bitch and my mentality and my mindset was there, I had to almost, correct it and make myself do one more, go one more. And that's when it really stuck. That's when it really stuck that when things suck, when there's something you don't want to do or somewhere you don't want to be, go one step further. If you go one step further, it'll push you further towards where you want to be. But here's the caveat to that. Just because you do it one time doesn't make you any better. Just because you run one extra mile, just because you spend one extra hour one time in the gym, just because you work on a project for one more day, just because you tried to work on your business for one more week before you decided to close it down, that doesn't mean anything. You don't get any credit for that. I'm sorry, you don't. Going one more time doesn't count. It doesn't. Going one more, like I said, it's a lifestyle change. It's something you implement on a daily basis that makes this massive shift in your life because it compounds, right? It compounds over and over again. If I do something every day, one more, or once a week, or once a month, or once a year, one more, when you do it more frequently, they're not as massive of a shift, but when you do it less frequently, okay, it's this big thing. But when you do it on a consistent basis, it compounds, and that's when it pays off. That is when you see the massive difference. I'm a massive believer in challenging yourself and learning from those challenges or looking for opportunities to grow. But just because you look for one opportunity, just because you challenge yourself one time, doesn't mean jack shit. And I look at people with, say for example, a bucket list. Say you're a marathon's on your bucket list and you do it one time. Well, that's not that impressive. I'm sorry, but it's not. Maybe do a marathon and then find something harder and accomplish that. Maybe do a triathlon then, right? As I'm talking through Ironman prep right now. And maybe after you do an Ironman, you find an ultra marathon. And you challenge yourself and you do another one. You try to get a better time. And you do one more to get a better time. And another one to get a better time. It's these things you do on a consistent basis, challenging yourself and opening up to opportunities to allow yourself to grow over and over and over again. Don't get caught up in doing this one thing, this one more thing one time, and then rewarding yourself for the rest of your life. Because guess what? That doesn't work. It doesn't. I'm sorry. Just because you do it one more time, it doesn't mean anything, right? So the way I knew this made a massive impact, going back to that run during marathon season where I went, there was 19 miles. I was like, shit, that felt good. Pushing yourself past that mental and physical barrier you place on yourself, and a lot of other people place on themselves, that limits their growth, that limits their potential. That's a big thing. That's a big problem with a lot of people. And because I realized the significance of that, I had a hat that I wore during marathon season, right? I always have a hat for some sort of event. Like right now during Ironman prep, I have a hat that I'm wearing. And I like to write some things in them. And in that hat, I flipped over the bill, I had a Sharpie, and I wrote one more. And that was my hat where, if I'm having another day, if I'm on another run where shit starts to suck and that little voice in the back of your head says, just take it easy today. Don't go the full 18 miles. Well, you look at your hat and you say, okay, I'm doing one more. Let's fucking go. Let's go 19. Figuratively. Whatever it is you're doing, go that one more. And you have that reminder. And I had that reminder on my hat. And I took a picture of that and I posted that on Instagram. And I kind of explained the mindset behind it, right? And it resonated with thousands of people. To this day, we still get pictures and emails sent to us where people write one more on the bill of their hat. And I talk about this in my book right now. And it was a very powerful moment that I realized. It was amazing. I realized how many people it touched. And after that, after people started sending pictures of their hat saying one more or writing it on something, then we started getting emails and direct messages of people signing up for their first half marathon and their first marathon. And now I have people that are signing up for triathlons and half Ironmans and Ironmans because they're inspired by that one more mentality. Like I said, it has the potential to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. A lot of people get lost in the journey of going from point A to point B because it's confusing. If you don't have a vision of where you're going or how you're going to get there, it's super overwhelming. And I say that being a person that was there. When I started my company, I had no fucking clue where I was going, and I had no clue how to get there. I didn't. I was just throwing darts at a dartboard, and I love that analogy because I use it all the time. I was this kid that was just confused and had no direction and no vision, and I was throwing darts at a dartboard, hoping one of those stuck. And one of those was the golden ticket. But guess what? None of them was, because I was just throwing darts at a dartboard, and that's literally all it was. And it wasn't until I had a vision of where I was going that allowed me to go from point A to point B. But that vision alone, a vision isn't gonna change your life. There has to be execution. There has to be implementation. In the one more mentality, that is the execution. That is the implementation. You take your vision and you have a strong vision. It can be broad. It doesn't have to be specific. But when you take that vision and you amplify it, you put it into execution with that one more mentality, that's where you're going to see the difference. I promise you, that is where I saw the difference. Those are the nights where everyone else is going out and having fun and going on vacations and having leisure. And you say, you know what, I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to work through this one. I'm going to read one more book. I'm going to do one more marketing advertising test. I'm going to listen to one more podcast on business and marketing or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. But like I said, just going one time ain't going to cut it. That's not going to do anything. That's just dipping your toes in the water to see if it feels good. But when you plunge and go all in, like I also talk about, and you're consistent with it, well, that's when you're just getting fed by the information. That's when you're getting fed by the opportunity. And that is what changed my life. That is what's changed the course of my life from attempting to start a business to making it happen, the execution. And that's what I wanted to talk about. And that's why it's so important to me. The go one more mentality, like I said, has changed the way I think. It's changed the way I act, the way I plan, the way I execute. And taking the vision and multiplying it and putting it into action with the go one more mentality is massive. So I encourage you guys to implement it and try it in your daily life consistently over and over and over again, because it will make a difference. So that's what I wanted to get across, because it's massive and it's big and you can do big things with it, and don't take it lightly. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please share it with a friend and leave a review under the Bear Performance Podcast on iTunes. It helps us reach more people, gain better exposure, and kind of just share a message that we have, especially that I have, because I have very strong feelings about a lot of different things, and this is one of them. This is one of the top priorities that if you act on it and you try it and you're consistent with it, and it's not a one-time thing, well, shit. Do it.